I'm submitting to us that time has come, that we must remember that this country will only realize their potential the day that good men and women have the opportunity to serve. God save Kenya. These are the individuals who will save Kenya. These are the individuals, the pharaohs who have acquired the garbs of Moses, cheating us that they are Moses and they are pharaohs in disguise. God save Kenya. A country which, if God were to judge us correctly, ought not to exist on the face of the earth. It ought to have received the treatment of Sodom and Gomorrah. But the only beauty in Kenya is that God has found 50 people. That is the only reason why God still preserved this country. But his patience is running out. Our cup of iniquity is getting filled by the day, and we do not know it. How is it getting filled by the day? On a daily basis, we are becoming a country where greed is celebrated. We give men and women opportunity to serve, and they steal from us. We give men and women the opportunity to preside over our health services. They acquire expired drugs, and women die, and children die. We are accusing Adolf Hitler of Holocaust. That is Holocaust of another kind. We are giving men and women the opportunity to preside over our transport department. They take the money, compromise the quality of our roads, and men and women die on those roads. And then we say that that is not genocide. It is genocide. And those men claim to be Christians. We give men and women the opportunity to preside over our counties. And our nurses are on strike for 1 month. And our doctors are on strike for 1 month. And not the president, not the opposition leader, not any member of parliament talks about it. And we celebrate them because of our ethnicity. You, the Kikuyu, say, Modowa Nyuba. You, the Luo, say, Oduadu. And you, the Kamba, say, Osa Vinyamo Kamba. How can a country run that way? How can a country run that way? And we claim to be Christians, and we are so corrupt. We are destroying the next generation. And that is why James, in the book that was read at chapter 5, verses 1 to 8, tells and warns them that you oppressors, the gold and silver that you have acquired shall corrode. All these things that you have acquired that make you feel important, it is nothing. The great Alexander the Great, who had conquered half the known world before the birth of Christ, at his deathbed, instructed the doctors to prepare a coffin with his hands outstretched, that it may be known to the world that you came with nothing and you go with nothing. And he asked that the pallbearers be his doctors to tell the world that when death cometh, even the doctors cannot stop it. Yet in our vanity, we believe that when we acquire things, then we are immunizing ourselves from something. The last time I checked, greed is like drinking salty water. The more you drink, the more you want, but your thirst will never be sated. We have individuals in our communities, including ourselves, who engage in graft and corruption, either wittingly or unwittingly, but most of it is wittingly. And we celebrate these individuals. In Kenya today, when I look at the men and women in the opposition, when I look at men and women in government, and I remember that not so long ago I had the advantage of working in an organization that investigated them. bound by the oath of secrecy, but I can generally say, I look at them and say, God save Kenya. The tragedy is that the Kenyans either do not know or do not care. But I suspect that they know, and they have simply chosen to do what was described by the prophet Isaiah. They have eyes, but they do not see. They have ears, but they do not hear. They have a form of Christianity, and Christianity has only become a fig leaf with which we hide our moral nakedness. We must interrogate our Christianity, because if it were true that being Christians immunize us from greed, then this country would be one of the countries with the least corruption in the world. It cannot be right that we are 80% Christian, we claim, and we are one of the most corrupt nations in Africa and on earth. This corruption that is alive and well in us. It is alive and well in us because we think that corruption and the things that we have acquired illegally are going to save us. But when you read the book of Luke, that conversation between Christ himself and that rich man, the young rich man comes forth and said, "Good teacher, good teacher, what do I do to go to heaven?" Follow the commandment, Christ says in his divine soft voice. And he says, "I've followed all those commandments from my boyhood." But then Christ said, "But there is one that you have not done. Go out and sell your things. Once you have sold them, distribute them to the poor. Then you shall, having unburdened yourself, go to heaven." And the young man goes out, possibly shaking his head and saying, "Now I cannot go beyond that point." And Christ possibly pointing at him and telling his disciples, "I tell you, how difficult shall it be for a rich man to go into the kingdom of God? It would be easier for a camel to pass through the eye of the camel, of the needle, than for a rich man to get into heaven." Christ is not condemning wealth. Christ is simply condemning the worship of wealth. Because the same Bible says that you should have enough for your children's children up to the 4th generation, but by the sweat of your brow. By the sweat of your brow. Not by taking things that belong to others. What we are condemning and what Christ is condemning is that we should not use our position to acquire things that don't belong to us. And I'm submitting to us that one of the reasons why Africa and Kenya will never realize their potential is that our appetite for that which is evil has been sharpened. Waswahili wanasema kinolewacho hupata. Our appetites are so sharpened that our conscience is seared. Our conscience is numb. We can no longer tell the difference between good and evil. And because we cannot tell the difference between good and evil, we engage in good and evil on a daily basis. And that is why Isaiah says, "Woe unto you who call light day and day light." And corruption is to be found in very many places. Corruption is not only to be found in the political arena. Corruption is found even in churches today. You know, a friend of mine with whom we don't agree on many things, but we agreed on this one, once told me, the church has become so mechanical, so structured in form, that there is no space for Christ and God. And that I thought was very deep. We have structured our worship services in such a way that God is only mentioned occasionally, that God is only worshipped occasionally. And I normally sometimes ask myself, how was Christ worshiping? Christ was an itinerant preacher who engaged in dialogue on a daily basis. Christ would come and find a few people and engage them in a discourse. on matters of the heaven. When he talks about the parables of the unleavened bread, when he talks about the parable of the sower, when he talks about the parables of the wheat and the tares, Christ is an itinerant preacher. He did not have a title. Today we are hankering after titles. There is no shortage of apostles and bishops in this part of the world. Woe unto them on the day of judgment. They'll be told, we know you not. So the question is, we who are seated here, we who are Kenyans, we who know what is good and right, are we the salt of the earth or we are the light of the earth? This is the question that we must ask. What is our contribution? I'm told at one time by a friend, whether this is a true story or is an apocryphal story, I do not know. But in some airport in the Middle East, that there was a signpost saying, you can leave your goods here, there are no Christians. There is a sense in which that statement is made tongue-in-cheek, but it has a hidden meaning. I'm sure that even in this church, when you are making an altar call, the pastor finds it fitting to say, as you come for the altar call, you ladies, take care of your bags. Because even within our ranks, Satan is alive and well. Within our ranks, Satan is alive and well. Every corner we turn, Satan is alive and well. Remember that temptation is always there. Even Christ himself was tempted. So that what Christ is telling us to do, he also went through. He had the agony. I keep on saying, before Golgotha, there was the agony at Gethsemane. There is no Golgotha without Gethsemane. And there is no resurrection without Gethsemane and Golgotha. So there is no triumph without temptation. It is your ability to resist temptation that defines who you are in these matters of corruption. And I know many thieves in this country. There is no shortage of thieves in Kenya. There is no shortage of thieves in parliament. They are there, and they are also good men there, but few. On national television, a member of parliament from a place called Sirisia. I do not know his name, that member of parliament. But he was asked about corruption, and he said on national television that we normally receive bribes between 10,000, 100,000 and 50,000. All of us, he said on national television. And he was asked a direct question, do you yourself receive bribes? He says, I do. And even right now, he said, there is a matter in which I'm involved, in which fellow members of parliament have asked for 56 million. And he asked the interviewer, who can refuse money except God? I'm telling him that we can refuse money, and we have. There are good men in this country. I subsequently sent an SMS to the ESCC telling, arrest this individual. I'm still waiting for the answer. Because I believe such a one as that ought not to occupy the position of leadership, but I fear that such a one as that will be re-elected again. And when you elect such men and women to come to parliament, we can pray and fast all we want. But the last time I checked, if you elect Lucifer and his angels, there is only one thing that is going to happen, something satanic. And I'm submitting to us that indeed, as we are looking at the country today, and you watch these individuals in the 47 odd counties, these men and women, the bulk of them, are making promises to us. They are telling us they'll build bridges where there are no rivers. They'll build bridges. They are now telling us that they shall cause manna to fall from heaven. They are telling us that they shall make ice out of water and water out of ice. And they shall make fire out of ice, they are telling us. They are telling us that upon their election our lives will change dramatically in the same way that Paul of Tarsus became Paul. They are telling us that Kenya will become El Dorado, the land of gold, on the day of their election. They are telling us They are telling us that their manifestos contain the secrets of alchemy that will allow us to convert bronze into gold. They are telling us that the skyscrapers of America in New York will be transplanted and be planted in Kitui. They are telling us, or they are telling us that all the beautiful things that are happening in Europe will, in the twinkling of an eye, invade our country and will never go back again. They are telling us, and unfortunately we believe them. We believe that they are latter-day alchemists. We believe that they are latter-day Simon the sorcerers. We believe that they are going to part the Red Sea of our lives. We believe that they shall erect pillars of fire to separate us from latter-day pharaohs. We believe that they shall knock stones and water shall come out of them. Who betide us? Those things will not happen. Because the last time I checked, an elephant only begets an elephant. How can it therefore be that a rabbit tells me that he'll beget an elephant? How can it be that hyenas are now telling me that they shall give forth lions? It cannot happen. It will not happen. And we believe it. We are co-authors of our own misfortune. And that is why I look forward to the day when we shall have in leadership men and women who love this country. I remember an old man with whom I had the privilege of working for a short time, former president of Tanzania, Julius Kambarage Nyerere. On the day that he left office, after 24 years in office, it is reported he had only 8,000 equivalent of United States dollars in his account. That is just about the amount that our MCA uses over a weekend. Mwalimu Nyerere, after 24 years, that is all he had. With a single house in Dar es Salaam and another one in Butiama, our MCAs and our governors within 4 years have 80 and 40 houses. And if you look at them, they have expanded so exponentially that even suits can no longer fit some of them. If you look at them, they are even running away. Has it ever occurred to you that our leaders are running away from something? They are running away from themselves. When they go to the barber shop, the first thing they ask for, a man, dye my hair that it may not be white. If God divinely said that when you grow old, your hair turns gray, why are you running away from your age? And when you have men and women who are running away from themselves, from their appearance, how truthful can they be to us? They are little things, but they have something to tell us. I'm submitting to us that time has come, that we must remember that this country will only realize their potential the day that good men and women have the opportunity to serve.